Learning English, sometimes it can feel like you're about to embark on this massive journey, like a big expedition
I like that.
with all this exciting potential and new things to discover. And we have this map to help us along the way today.
Oh, a map. That's cool. And I'm assuming the map is this cool YouTube video that we are diving into.
Exact.
Talk to People in English, it's called. A graded reader. Improve your English, learn English level 1. And it's from the Learn English with Listening channel on YouTube.
Perfect. And you know what I really like about this video is it just feels so accessible.
Oh, yeah.
It's like having this friendly chat with someone who has already gone through the journey of learning English, and they're giving you all these tips.
Yeah. And like you said, it is very accessible, and it gives you a lot of advice for wherever you are on your English learning journey. So it is a very comprehensive overview.
Yes, and that's kind of what we want to do in this deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to take all this information from this video and pull out these actionable insights that you can actually start using today.
Definitely.
Whether you are just starting out or you are already advanced and you just want to get that extra push to the next level.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into it.
Okay, so one of the things that struck me right at the beginning was the emphasis on consistent exposure. And I think this is so important, especially through listening.
Yeah, and you know what I thought was so interesting is the speaker talks about how they started their English learning journey just by listening to stories in English, and how that was such a key for them in lessening the feeling of being overwhelmed by learning a new language.
I think so many people, when they start learning a new language, it can feel so intimidating.
Yeah.
And the video really talks about just listening to simple stories, music, or even just having English playing in the background, which is so gentle.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this intense studying right at the beginning. It's just about making those sounds and rhythms of the language become more familiar.
Yeah, just get used to it. And I remember when I was trying to learn Spanish, I would just put on the Spanish radio station.
In the background while I was doing other things. And it surprisingly helped my ear adjust to the language.
It's amazing how powerful that is, that passive exposure,
Yeah, and there is actual research in language acquisition that shows that this type of extensive listening actually helps you internalize the sound system and even grammatical patterns of a new language subconsciously, even before you fully understand every word.
Wow.
It's like your brain starts to recognize the underlying structure without you realizing it.
That's so cool. It's like when you hear a song so many times and then you just start picking up the lyrics even though you weren't actively trying to learn them.
Exactly.
And, the video kind of moves from that foundation of listening into this active practice. And I love that they really emphasize practice makes perfect.
Yeah, and the speaker in the video talks about their own experience of really trying to make an effort to speak English every day and being okay with making mistakes, which I think is such a crucial point because it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there.
Yes, it does. And I think that's so important. Language is a skill. It's like learning a musical instrument. You only get better by actually using it.
Totally. Like, you can read all the music theory books you want, but you'll never be a guitarist without picking up the guitar and practicing.
Right.
And it's the same with learning English.
Sure.
You can study grammar, you can make all these vocabulary lists, but the real learning comes when you actively try to express yourself and your thoughts, whether that's speaking or writing.
And I think that leads perfectly into the next point, which is the video also talks about the importance of reading. And you know what I really like is they say start simple. Like you could even start with materials aimed at children.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And I think that people might feel a bit silly reading children's books, but it's such a good way to build your confidence and learn that basic foundational vocabulary.
Yes. And they even use the example of like a story about a lost cat, which is such a simple narrative.
Right.
But it introduces new words and sentence structures in a way that is so easy to understand and so engaging.
And it makes learning vocabulary so much more natural because you're not just memorizing lists, you're seeing the words in context. And so you actually understand their meaning and how they're used in sentences.
Exactly. It's like incidental learning, which is so powerful.
And the video doesn't stop at reading. It encourages you to take what you've learned and then express it through writing.
Yes.
And again, they encourage you to start small. Just write about your day.
Your family.
Your dreams, even just a little bit every day.
I love how they say, keep a little notebook with you to jot down your thoughts.
That's a great tip because it makes it feel less like this formal writing assignment and more like a personal habit.
Yes, and I think that's so key to make it feel less like work.
And the act of writing forces you to actively remember and apply the language that you've learned. And it engages a different part of your brain than just reading or listening, because you're producing the language yourself.
You're solidifying that understanding of grammar and sentence structure.
Exactly.
So we talked about listening, we talked about reading and writing. What about watching videos?
Oh yeah, that's another great tip from the video. They suggest watching videos in English, whether that's cartoons or movies or TV shows. And the example they give in the video is learning new words from a funny cartoon dog, which really highlights how learning English can be part of your everyday entertainment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be serious study all the time.
It doesn't.
And there's so much we can learn from watching videos because we learn visually and we love stories.
Yes.
So by seeing and hearing the language used together, you start to pick up on all these nuances like tone and body language, and you'll learn all these everyday expressions that you might not find in a textbook.
And it's just fun.
It is.
It makes the whole learning process so much more enjoyable and so much less like a chore.
Exactly. And then the video moves on to what is probably the most direct form of practice.
Oh, yes. And maybe the most nerve-wracking.
Talking to people.
Yes. The video encourages you to find a language partner, someone to practice speaking with, whether that's a friend who's also learning English or a native speaker who's willing to help you, or you can even join one of the many online communities.
Right. The speaker shares their own experience of practicing with a supportive friend and how that really helped them build their confidence. And I think that's so important to have those real-time interactions and get feedback.
Yes, because when you are talking to someone, you're getting that immediate feedback, and that helps you to pinpoint areas that you need to improve.
You know, whether that's your pronunciation or grammar or just your fluency in general, and it helps you to get more comfortable with just the natural flow of conversation.
So we've talked about a lot of different strategies for learning English, but the video also touches on something super important.
Oh, yeah.
Mindset.
Your attitude towards learning.
Yes, and how important it is to be patient with yourself.
Because learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly, and the speaker even shares their own struggles with feeling frustrated at times and how they eventually persevered, which I think is really encouraging.
Definitely. It reminds us that everyone goes through those ups and downs when learning something new. It's totally normal.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. And I think the psychological aspect of language learning is often overlooked.
It is.
But it's huge. Believing in your own ability to learn and accepting that progress takes time is so important to staying motivated.
And alongside patience is the power of positivity.
Yes, stay positive, even when things feel difficult.
Yeah, and remind yourself why you started learning English in the first place. What were your goals? What do you hope to achieve by learning this language?
Yes, keeping those goals in mind can really help you push through those challenging times.
And I think maintaining a positive outlook can really impact your motivation and help you bounce back from those difficulties.
Yeah, it's all about reframing those challenges, not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow.
And speaking of growth, the video also emphasizes the importance of embracing your mistakes.
Yeah, mistakes are inevitable when you're learning something new, but this video really encourages you to see them as valuable learning opportunities. Your best teachers, actually.
I love that perspective.
Me too. It takes all the pressure off trying to be perfect all the time, which can be really paralyzing for language learners.
Yes, and it encourages you to experiment and take risks with the language, which ultimately helps you to learn more effectively.
Exactly. And another key point that the video makes is about creating an immersive learning environment.
Yes, surround yourself with English.
As much as you can.
As much as possible. And they give a few really practical tips, like you can change the language settings on your phone.
Listen to English music. Try to read the signs and labels when you are out and about, all those little things.
Those little everyday changes really make a difference.
Yeah, it helps to make English feel more natural and more integrated into your daily life instead of just being something you study for a certain amount of time every day.
And the video also talks about the importance of setting goals.
All right, starting with small, achievable goals, like learning 5 new words today.
Or reading a paragraph in English.
Exactly, just small steps.
And then once you've learned something, you need to review it to make sure that it sticks.
Yes. Regular review is so important to reinforce what you've learned and identify any areas where you might need a little more practice.
And I think it's so important to make learning enjoyable, to keep yourself engaged in the long run.
Absolutely. The video suggests incorporating fun activities into your routine, like playing games in English.
Trying to think in English, singing along to English songs, even making up silly stories.
Yeah, it's all about making it fun, and when you're having fun, you're more likely to stay motivated and keep practicing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive reflecting on all of the advice in this fantastic YouTube video, it's clear that learning English is a journey that requires consistent effort and a multifaceted approach.
You need to work on all four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Right, and you need to actively practice, build your vocabulary, and immerse yourself in the language as much as possible.
Yes, and remember to be patient with yourself and stay positive and embrace your mistakes, because those are all part of the learning process.
And don't forget to have fun along the way.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I think it was really important what we said earlier about overcoming the initial fear of speaking a new language.
Yes, just start by listening.
Listening consistently. And then remember that practice makes perfect.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes, see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
And remember, you don't have to do everything at once. Just start with small, manageable steps, like writing children's books or even just writing about your day in English.
Right.
And I think what is so important is that everyone's language learning journey is unique.
Absolutely.
What works for one person might not work for another. So it's all about finding what strategies resonate most with you and what keeps you motivated.
And I love how the video ends with that analogy of learning English being like planting a garden.
It's beautiful.
Each new word you learn is like planting a seed.
And each sentence you create is like a flower blooming.
And with consistent effort and care, your understanding of the language will flourish just like a beautiful garden.
That's such a powerful image, and it's so true.
Yeah.
So as you continue on your English learning journey, remember that every step you take, every effort you make, brings you closer to your goal.
Exactly.
So what really resonated with you from all the tips that we talked about today?
What resonated with me? Well, I think it was...
Is there anything that you feel inspired to implement in your own learning?
I think I'm going to try and start thinking more in English.
Ooh.
I don't do that enough. And I think that that's a really good way to start internalizing the language.
Yeah.
And maybe even start keeping that little notebook
Oh, that's a good idea.
to jot down my thoughts.
Yes.
Just those little things.
Those little things make a big difference.
Yeah.
So remember, every little step counts, and celebrate all the progress that you make along the way.
Don't give up.
Keep learning and keep growing.